The moment aliens realized humans are not prey, but the deadliest predators. Part 1. The Vulcan mistake. Commander Zithkar stood on the bridge of the Vulcan destroyer Blood Talon. His forearms crossed behind his back as he surveyed the endless void of space. His species had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 2 centuries, and for good reason. The Vulcans were natural-born killers, evolved from pack hunters on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Their chitinous exoskeletons could deflect most energy weapons. Their razor-sharp claws could tear through steel, and their enhanced reflexes made them nearly unbeatable in combat. Every species they encountered fell into 2 categories: useful slaves or immediate threats to be eliminated. There was no middle ground in the Vulcan philosophy of conquest. The strong survived and the weak served. It was the natural order of things. "Commander," called Navigation Officer Crix from his station, "we are receiving an unknown signal from Grid Sector 7 Alpha. It appears to be some kind of research facility." Zethkar's mandibles clicked with interest. New species meant new opportunities for expansion and profit. "Analysis," he commanded. The main display shifted to show a small space station orbiting a dead planet. The structure was modest by Vulcan standards, built with clean lines and efficient design. Strange symbols marked the hull in what appeared to be some form of primitive writing. "Preliminary scans indicate the facility houses approximately 40 life forms," reported Science Officer Veltra. "The species is completely unknown to our databases. They appear to be bipedal mammals with no apparent natural weaponry or defensive capabilities." Zethkar moved closer to examine the readouts. What he saw filled him with predatory satisfaction. These creatures had soft, pink skin with no protective covering. They possessed no claws, no fangs, no armored plates or poisonous spines. Their muscle density was pathetically low compared to most species the Vulcans had encountered. They looked fragile, almost helpless. "Fascinating," Veltra continued. "Their technology appears focused entirely on research and exploration. No weapons signatures detected, minimal defensive capabilities. Their ship design suggests a peaceful civilization with no concept of true warfare." The bridge crew gathered around the display, studying these strange new creatures with growing amusement. Several junior officers made jokes about how easy this conquest would be. Here was a species so naive that they broadcast their location openly, apparently unaware that the galaxy was full of predators like the Vulcans. "What do they call themselves?" Zethkar asked. "According to their transmissions, they identify as humans from a world they call Earth," Veltra replied. "This appears to be a deep space research station studying stellar phenomena." Zethkar's S4 eyes gleamed with anticipation. Humans, such a soft, weak-sounding name for such an obviously weak species. These humans would make excellent slaves for the Vulcan mining operations. They appeared intelligent enough to be useful, but far too weak to resist or cause trouble. "Communications. Open a channel to their facility," Zethkar ordered. Within moments, the main screen displayed the interior of the human station. A female human appeared, wearing a simple white coat over blue clothing. She had short dark hair and brown eyes that seemed surprisingly calm for a prey species about to meet apex predators. "This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, director of Aurora Point Research Station," the human said in a clear, steady voice. "We've detected your approach and wanted to extend greetings to our new neighbors." Zethkar was momentarily taken aback by the human's composure. Most prey species panicked when they first encountered Vulcans, but this Dr. Rodriguez showed no signs of fear. Perhaps these humans were simply too primitive to understand the danger they were in. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Vulcan Empire," he replied, allowing his full height and predatory presence to dominate the screen. "Your facility now falls under Vulcan jurisdiction. Prepare to surrender your station and submit to Imperial authority." Dr. Rodriguez tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. I see. And what exactly does that mean for my research team? You will serve the Empire as we see fit, Sethkar stated bluntly. Your fate depends entirely on your usefulness and obedience. To his surprise, the human woman nodded thoughtfully. Well, Commander, we've always been curious about other intelligent species. Would you and your crew be interested in coming aboard our station? We could discuss this face to face. Zethkar's mandibles clicked with dark amusement. The foolish human was actually inviting predators onto her station. This would be even easier than he had anticipated. Prey species that willingly open their doors to hunters deserved whatever fate awaited them. We accept your invitation, Zethkar said. Prepare docking bay 3 for our arrival. As the transmission ended, the bridge crew erupted in laughter. The humans were so naive that they were essentially offering themselves up for capture. This would go down in Velkan history as one of the easiest conquests ever achieved. Within an hour, a boarding shuttle carrying 20 elite Velkan warriors approached the human station. Each warrior was armed with plasma weapons and wore full combat armor. Though Zethkar doubted they would need such precautions against these obviously defenseless creatures, the shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the airlock cycled open to reveal a small reception area. Dr. Rodriguez waited there, along with 3 other humans, all wearing the same calm expressions that had puzzled Zethkar during their initial communication. Welcome to Aurora Point, Dr. Rodriguez said, gesturing for them to enter. I hope you'll find our facilities interesting. Zethkar stepped through the airlock, followed by his warriors. The human station was unlike anything he had expected. Instead of the cramped, defensive spaces that most prey species preferred, the corridors were wide and well lit. The walls were covered with strange displays, showing charts, graphs, and images of distant stars. But what truly surprised him was the humans themselves. As the Velkan boarding party moved through the station, they encountered humans everywhere. Some wore white coats like Dr. Rodriguez, others dressed in simple work clothes. All of them looked up from whatever they were doing, nodded politely to the armed aliens, and went back to their tasks. Not one of them showed fear. Dr. Rodriguez, Zethkar said as they walked, do your people understand that we are here to take control of your station? Oh, yes, she replied cheerfully. You made that quite clear. We're all very curious about how this will work out. The casual tone in her voice made Zethkar uncomfortable. Prey species were supposed to be terrified when faced with superior predators. They were supposed to beg and plead for mercy. These humans acted as if armed conquest was merely an interesting scientific phenomenon to be observed and studied. They passed a group of humans working on some kind of complex machinery. The workers looked up as the Velkan warriors approached, and Zethkar noticed something that made his spines tingle with unease. The humans weren't looking at his soldiers with fear or submission. They were studying them with the same focused attention that a researcher might give to a fascinating new specimen. This is our main laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez explained as they entered a large room filled with scientific equipment. We study everything from quantum mechanics to xenobiology. In fact, we've learned quite a bit about Velkan physiology just from observing your approach to our station. What do you mean? Zethkar demanded. A tall human male stepped forward, extending his hand in what appeared to be some kind of greeting gesture. I'm Dr. James Park, xenobiologist. We've been scanning your ship and crew since you first contacted us. Fascinating species, really. Your exoskeleton structure suggests evolution from arthropod ancestors, probably on a high-gravity world with significant predation pressure. Zethkar stared at the human in shock. How could these primitive creatures have learned so much about Velkan biology in such a short time? And why did Dr. Park sound more like he was discussing an interesting research project rather than facing conquest by a superior species. Your muscle density is impressive, continued another human, a female wearing thick glasses. But I noticed some interesting weaknesses in your joint articulation. The way your armor plates connect creates vulnerable points that could be exploited with the right kind of leverage. Dr. Sarah Kim, biomechanics specialist, Dr. Rodriguez explained helpfully. She's always been interested in how different species move and fight. Zethkar felt a chill run down his spine. These humans weren't just unafraid of his warriors. They were analyzing them like scientists studying lab specimens. Worse, they seemed to be identifying weaknesses in Vulcan physiology that even his own military hadn't considered. "Commander," one of his warriors whispered urgently, "something is wrong here. These humans are not acting like prey animals." Before Zethkar could respond, Dr. Rodriguez clapped her hands together. "Well, now that you've had a chance to look around, perhaps we should discuss the terms of this takeover you mentioned. I have to admit, we're all very curious about how you plan to proceed." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. "Well," Dr. Rodriguez said, pulling out a small tablet device, "you said we would serve the Empire based on our usefulness. We've been wondering what kinds of tasks you had in mind. You see, we've done quite a bit of research on conquest patterns among various species, and we're fascinated by your approach." She tapped her tablet, and the laboratory's main display screen came to life, showing detailed charts and graphs. "Based on our analysis of your ship's design and crew composition, we estimate that you typically rely on overwhelming force and intimidation to subdue new species. It's a very effective strategy against most prey animals, but we were curious about how it would work against a species that evolved differently." Zethkar stared at the display in growing horror. The humans had somehow analyzed his entire military doctrine in the few hours since first contact. The charts showed accurate assessments of Vulcan tactics, weapon capabilities, and even psychological warfare techniques. "How did you learn all this?" he whispered. "Oh, we're very good at learning new things quickly," Dr. Rodriguez replied with that same cheerful tone. "It's kind of our thing. You see, Commander, there's something you should understand about humans. We didn't evolve as prey animals." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Every human in the laboratory was now looking directly at Zethkar and his warriors, and for the first time, he saw something in their eyes that made his blood run cold. They weren't looking at him like prey studying predators. They were looking at him like predators evaluating potential threats. "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked, though his voice came out as barely a whisper. Dr. Rodriguez smiled, and for the first time, Zethkar noticed that humans had very sharp teeth. "We mean, Commander, that you've made a serious miscalculation. You looked at us and saw soft skin, small claws, and weak muscles. You assumed we were prey animals because we don't look like the predators you're used to fighting." She took a step closer, and Zethkar found himself backing away despite being twice her size and wearing full combat armor. "But you forgot to ask the most important question," she continued. "If humans are such weak prey animals, how did we become the dominant species on a planet full of creatures stronger, faster, and better armed than we are?" The lights in the laboratory suddenly dimmed, and Zethkar heard the sound of heavy blast doors sealing throughout the station. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made the human's eyes seem to gleam with predatory intent. "The answer to that question, Commander, is about to become very clear to you and your crew," Dr. Rodriguez said softly. "Welcome to Aurora Point. We hope you enjoy learning about human nature." The apex revelation in the red emergency lighting of the laboratory. Commander Zethkar watched as the humans around him underwent a subtle but terrifying transformation. Gone were the friendly smiles and curious expressions. In their place was something cold, calculating, and utterly predatory. Dr. Rodriguez, Zethkar said, his voice steady despite the growing fear in his chest. What is the meaning of this? Education, Commander, she replied, tapping her tablet again. The main display screen changed to show a three-dimensional map of the research station. Red dots marked the positions of all 20 Vulcan warriors, while blue dots showed the locations of the 40 human researchers. You wanted to learn about human usefulness. We thought we'd give you a practical demonstration. Zethkar activated his communicator. All units, report status. The responses came back immediately, but they weren't what he expected. Sector 2 secure, Commander. The humans here are continuing their work. No resistance encountered. Engineering section clear, sir. The humans seem to be maintaining their equipment as normal. You see, Dr. Rodriguez said, we decided to let your warriors spread throughout the station. It makes the lesson more comprehensive. What lesson? Zethkar demanded. Dr. Park stepped forward, still carrying that tablet computer. Commander, you mentioned that you've conquered many species. Tell me, what's the typical pattern when you board an enemy vessel? Despite himself, Zethkar found himself answering. Prey species panic. They either flee to hiding spots or make desperate, disorganized attacks. They're easily overwhelmed by superior Vulcan tactics and firepower. Exactly, Dr. Park nodded. Panic response. Flight or fight, with emphasis on flight. It's a standard prey animal reaction to the presence of apex predators. But you've noticed that we humans aren't following that pattern, haven't you? Zethkar looked around the laboratory. The humans were all calmly going about their business, completely ignoring the armed aliens in their midst. Some were working at computer terminals. Others were adjusting scientific equipment. None of them showed any sign of the panic that should have gripped a prey species facing conquest. Why aren't you afraid? He asked. Dr. Kim looked up from a device she was calibrating. Because we're not prey, Commander. We're persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Zethkar shook his head, though he had a growing suspicion that he was about to find out. On our home world, Dr. Kim explained, humans weren't the strongest or fastest predators. We couldn't match a lion's strength or a cheetah's speed. But we had something much more dangerous. We had endurance, intelligence, and the ability to work in coordinated groups. She set down her device and moved closer to Zethkar. We would chase our prey for hours, sometimes days. We didn't need to be faster because we never stopped. We didn't need to be stronger because we used tools. And we didn't hunt alone because we were smart enough to coordinate our attacks. Dr. Rodriguez touched her tablet again. Would you like to see how persistence predators handle an invasion, Commander? The display screen switched to internal security feeds from throughout the station. Zethkar could see his warriors in different sections, all standing in groups and looking confident in their conquest. But as he watched, he began to notice something disturbing. In each section, the humans outnumbered his warriors. Not by a small margin, but by ratios of 3 or 4 to 1. His 20 elite soldiers had been scattered throughout the station and were now isolated in small groups, surrounded by humans who had been studying them since the moment they came aboard. Your tactical mistake, Commander, was assuming that because we invited you aboard, we were surrendering, Dr. Rodriguez said. What we actually did was get you to divide your forces and enter an environment that we control completely. Zethkar's communicator crackled with new reports from his warriors. Commander, the humans in Sector 3 are asking a lot of questions about our equipment. They want to know how our weapons work. Sir, the humans here are offering to show us their research data. They seem very interested in our ship's defensive capabilities. You see, Dr. Park said, while you were thinking like conquerors, we were thinking like scientists. We've been gathering intelligence on your technology, your tactics, and your psychology since the moment you made contact. Dr. Rodriguez held up her tablet, showing detailed schematics that made Sethkar's blood run cold. For example, we've determined that Vulcan armor has 17 weak points where the plates don't quite connect. We've calculated the exact pressure required to disrupt your respiratory system. And we've identified the specific frequency of sound waves that interferes with Vulcan neural functions. That's impossible, Sethkar whispered. You've only been observing us for a few hours. Commander, Dr. Kim said gently, you're still thinking like a prey animal. You assume that, because something takes your species a long time to learn, it must take everyone else the same amount of time. But humans are very good at pattern recognition and rapid learning. It's how we survived on a world full of creatures that were stronger and more dangerous than we were. The lights in the laboratory suddenly went out completely. In the darkness, Sethkar could hear the soft sounds of humans moving around him, but his enhanced night vision showed him nothing. It was as if the humans had simply vanished. Thermal vision, one of his warriors reported over the communicator. The humans have somehow masked their heat signatures. We cannot track them. Asterisk Dr. Rodriguez's voice came from somewhere in the darkness, but Sethkar couldn't pinpoint her location. Another human advantage, Commander. We're very good at controlling our environment. We learn to use darkness, weather, terrain, and even the behavior of other animals to our advantage when hunting. Emergency lighting flickered back on, revealing that the humans had somehow rearranged the entire laboratory while remaining in complete darkness. Equipment had been moved to create defensive positions. Tools had been organized for easy access. And the humans themselves had taken positions that gave them clear lines of sight to every Vulcan in the room. More disturbing still, several of the humans were now carrying improvised weapons. Dr. Park held a device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts, but hummed with dangerous energy. Dr. Kim had modified some kind of scientific instrument into what was clearly a projectile weapon. Other humans carried tools that had been quickly converted into implements of war. Asterisk. How? Sethkar asked. Tool use, Commander, Dr. Rodriguez explained, holding up what appeared to be a simple metal rod that now glowed with cutting energy. Humans are the ultimate tool-using species. Give us any environment, and we'll find ways to turn everything around us into weapons, defenses, or hunting aids. Sethkar's communicator erupted with panicked reports from throughout the station. Commander, the humans have weapons now. I don't know how they made them so quickly. Sir, they've sealed the corridors in Sector 4. We're trapped. Commander, they're jamming our communications somehow. Half my squad can't report in. You wanted to know about human usefulness, Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice taking on a harder edge. Here's what you need to understand. Humans don't serve. We cooperate when it benefits us. We compete when necessary. And we eliminate threats when we have to. She took a step towards Sethkar, and he found himself backing away despite every instinct telling him to stand and fight. Every species on our home world learned one simple rule: don't hunt humans. Because humans don't just run when attacked. They remember. They plan. They come back stronger. The laboratory's main display screen flickered back to life, showing the tactical situation throughout the station. Sethkar watched in growing horror as his elite warriors, the finest soldiers in the Vulcan Empire, were systematically outmaneuvered by researchers and scientists who had transformed their peaceful station into a complex trap. We've been studying warfare for thousands of years, Dr. Park explained, adjusting something on his improvised weapon. Not because we're naturally violent, but because on our world, everything was trying to kill us. We had to become very, very good at killing back. The thing about persistence predators, Commander, Dr. Kim added, is that we don't give up, ever. When we identify a threat, we study it, We learn its weaknesses, and then we eliminate it. It's not personal. It's just survival. Zethkar activated his communicator one more time. All units, withdraw to the docking bay immediately. Emergency evacuation protocol. But the response he got made his worst fears reality. Commander, we can't reach the docking bay. The humans have sealed all access routes. Sir, they've taken control of our shuttle. We're trapped. Dr. Rodriguez looked at him with something that might have been pity. I'm sorry, Commander, but we can't let you leave just yet. You see, we've learned something very important from studying your ship and crew. The Velkin Empire represents a significant threat to peaceful species throughout this region of space. She gestured to the display screen, which now showed star charts marked with Velkin conquest routes and battle plans. Your own computers contain detailed records of 17 species you've enslaved or destroyed in the past decade alone. Billions of sentient beings. That information is classified, Zethkar said weakly. Not anymore, Dr. Park replied. We've copied your entire database and transmitted it to the Galactic Council, along with our analysis of Velkin military capabilities and tactical doctrines. Other species have a right to know what they're facing. Zethkar felt the last of his predatory confidence drain away. These humans had not only defeated his warriors without violence, they had also turned his own mission into intelligence disaster for the entire Velkin Empire. What do you want from us? He asked. Nothing, Dr. Rodriguez said simply. We're going to repair your shuttle and send you back to your ship. You're going to return to Velkin space and report exactly what happened here. And then you're going to tell your empire one simple truth. She leaned closer. Zethkar saw something in her eyes that made him understand, for the first time in his life, what it truly meant to be prey. Tell them that humans are not prey animals, she said softly. Tell them that we are the species that turned wolves into pets and bears into circus performers. We are the species that looked at the most dangerous predators on our world and decided they would serve us instead. The lights came back to full brightness, and Zethkar could see his warriors being escorted through the corridors by groups of humans. The Velkins were unharmed, but looked shaken and defeated. Their weapons had been confiscated, their armor had been analyzed and catalogued, and their confidence had been completely shattered. Your people will be returned safely to your ship, Dr. Rodriguez continued. But Commander, I want you to remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to realize that you weren't the apex predator you thought you were. As Zethkar and his defeated warriors were led to their shuttle, he couldn't stop thinking about Dr. Rodriguez's final words. The humans weren't content to simply defend themselves. They had turned the entire encounter into a learning experience, gathering intelligence that could be used to protect other species from Velkin aggression. As the shuttle detached from the human station and made its way back to the Blood Talon, Zethkar realized that the Velkin Empire had just encountered something far more dangerous than any prey animal or rival predator they had ever faced. They had met the galaxy's true apex predators, and those predators were now watching them with the patient, calculating gaze of hunters who never forgot a threat. The age of easy Velkin conquest was over. The humans had made sure of that. Asterisk.